Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take you on a journey today. So I hope you go on the journey and imagine yourself walking in this journey. This is a journey of a young girl who was born in 1999 in a small town in Haryana to a middle class teacher father and a stay at home mother. This journey started when her younger sister was about to be born when she was about 4 years and a half in 2003. She had a wonderful childhood, and when her younger sibling was about to be born, her mother was being asked about the gender of the child. So her mother was being pressured to test the gender if it was a baby girl or a baby boy. And this question, you might wonder, was it really important? Well, it was important. I'm talking about 2004, rural Haryana, and this was not very uncommon when the gender of the child, of the fetus, would be checked to see if it was a girl child or a male child, and that would determine if they would be born or they would be killed in the womb of the mother. Yet, it was done under pressure, and it was found out that it was a baby girl. Well, when the first girl child was born, there was still some celebration because it was the first child in the family. But then, when the second child, that was a female, was about to be born, there was a sense of sadness. There was a sense of if the father will have to become a bodyguard for the daughters because it's another daughter. And there was a sense of regret among people around in the family. And then it turns out that the parents wanted the child, the parents fought, and at the last moment, the baby girl was born. Well, you might have guessed, it is the story of none other than myself. This is when I was introduced to activism when my younger sister was about to be born in 2004, and we had a personal experience of what female feticide looked like. When a second daughter is about to be born in India, what the parents have to go through. This experience moved my parents, and they started a campaign. It was called the Beti Bachao Desh Bachao, or the Save Daughters Save India campaign. It was my father who started and initiated, and my mother being his backbone, that they both led this movement all by themselves in 2004 in a small village in Haryana, wherein they started talking about female feticide, talking openly about it, and taking their 5-year-old daughter, that is me, and my newly born sister, Ananya Banerjee, along. It would be safe to say that I was born into activism, and unlike many other young people, I had a very uncommon childhood, wherein I spent a large part of my childhood on roads, raising slogans, being in protests, being in public outcry sessions, enacting plays and nukkad nataks in villages, interacting with people at public places, whether it's bus stands or toll plazas, raising awareness about the topic of female feticide. I would often recite poems that my father penned down. The poem was called "Mujhe Jeena Hai, Mujhe Mat Maro," which basically translates to the cry of a baby girl wanting to live and who is not wanting to die in the womb of the mother. These kind of experiences made me introduced to the concept of unseen voices. This was my first time that I started to understand that there are some voices that are left unseen. I was just 5 years old. I barely had any understanding of the world, but I could understand that this was a serious business. And we went on, and in 2009, we realized that the Mother Nature was also crying for help. It was in 2009 when me and my parents, along with a few other volunteers, went on an expedition, a road expedition across 7 states of India, covering 4,500 kilometers by road, stopping at various schools, colleges, and villages, talking about the cause of environmental degradation and the role of an individual in addressing the issue of climate change. This was my second time facing and experiencing what unseen voices looked like. First, we were talking about the unseen voices of female fetuses, the voices who no one was hearing, who no one could see, that was not tangible, that was invisible, and it was unheard. And now it was the time for the second lifeline of humankind. It is the mother who gives birth to us who is in danger. And then the second lifeline is nature, that was also in danger. And we took up this cause. We made a documentary film called Earth in Flames. And that is how our journey continued. But it was not until 2018, which I say is the turning point of my life, because what happened was I happened to go on a Harvard conference to Kuala Lumpur, and as a part of that conference, I got to visit a refugee school there. I entered a room totally unexpectedly, not knowing what to expect. A room full of smiles, bright eyes, brimming with joy. I had expected that I would see faces that would be dull, that would be sad, because they were coming from war-torn areas. But it turns out that those children, by the way, that is also the first time that I heard the song Baby Shark, because those children were dancing to that song, brimming with joy, and it totally changed my perspective. They were another group of unseen voices that I was interacting for the first time. And something changed in me. It touched me. I felt that I needed to do something about it. Well, there was definitely a background of activism that I carried. As a child, I was introduced to media, I was introduced to advocacy, but this time I wanted to take the control and the power in my own hands. But then I went on to study in Australia, I went on to study in the UK, and while I was in the UK, one fine evening while I was cooking, I had this epiphany, I had this realization that I was among very, very few privileged Indians, especially Indian women, who had the opportunity to have studied in 3 different countries and to have lived in 3 different countries by the age of 19. And I wanted to share this with others. I immediately became restless. I couldn't wait. I started searching up on the Google. I started surfing the internet on how I could start up a school. Well, it was definitely not easy. It required a lot of capital, a lot of infrastructure. And as a 19-year-old, definitely I didn't have any money, no pocket money, nothing saved up. And I still was very restless and I wanted to do something about it. And it didn't take me too long before I had the idea of opening a mobile school. Well, friends, this gave birth to the concept of Sushiksha, a free weekend school that still runs, whether it's a foggy morning, a rainy afternoon, or a dark evening, classes go on. And it's been 5 years since we've been doing this in 4 different cities now. And we have touched the lives of more than 450 students in different slums and villages through making a community, a beautiful community of young volunteers and changemakers like yourselves. This was the turning point in my history of activism, in my journey of working with the unseen voices. I happened to interact and firsthand talk with and engage with unseen voices, the children of slums who we don't talk about, who we don't engage in policy making, who are usually gone unheard. This was the time when I saw their life firsthand, their homes, their parents, their lives, their enthusiasm to learn, and their resilience to want to learn. Well, this gave me another confidence and it strengthened my resolve to go further and go on. It was then in COVID that my sister, Sanjoli Banerjee, started working with people with mental illnesses. And we started another campaign called Abhivyakti, which is a Hindi term that stands for expression. And that is how I have been working with the unseen. But then there is another important thing to understand and realize here. Well, I was always not the one who was seen either. As a change maker, you would expect or you would assume that I was always the seen person and I was doing charity for the unseen. Well, that was necessarily not the case. As a young female change maker in India, you are also a lot of times unseen. It is the journey of change making is not as easy and it is full of hurdles. But what made me understand or go on this journey was a concept that I got to learn about during my Masters of Social Work in Australia. And that concept is called the concept of privilege. I'm sure you must have heard this term being loosely used, the underprivileged and the privileged. But the deeper understanding of me made me understand how we define the seen and the unseen, How do we identify who is seen and who is unseen? Well, there are lots of barriers that people face to be unseen. There are a lot of people that we leave behind who become unseen. And the concept of privilege basically changed and shifted the perspective. It changed my narrative and made me understand why the world is the way it is. Well, privilege is basically your identity of what caste you come from, your religion, your gender, your sexuality, your income level, your level of education, and so on, the parameters that we have constructed. And these parameters and these identities come and intersect with each other to decide if you will be among the privileged or the marginalized. And this is the reason that some people are left unseen, whereas some people are seen. Well, I decided to use my privilege and share it with others. And today, through this talk, I'm not here to become a celebrity or a star or to share my story with you or take your sympathy, but to basically share three major learnings that I've had through this journey of change making in the small span of 25 years. And that is, the first is that, please understand, my dear young friends, that being seen or unseen, the concept of privilege is a social construct. None of us was born seen or unseen, and I'm sure you would agree with that. None of us was born seen or unseen. It is actually the society that decides if we will be seen or unseen. The second concept is that the concept of being seen or unseen changes and fluctuates with time. It is not a linear process, but actually a very complex process that is also contextual in its nature, which means that you might be seen in this auditorium, but you might feel unseen outside this auditorium. And a similar thing happened with me as well. While I would feel unseen in a lot of circumstances when I would stand among males at public places and I would be addressing older male generation about female feticide, and they would question me why girls should be saved when there are so many problems in the society, when parents have to collect dowry for their daughters and the daughters are unsafe because of crime in the society. And I would often be confronted with tough questions. Do you still think, Sanjoli, that girls should be saved despite all these challenges? And that was the time that I would also feel unseen. When I would have to interact with different sections of the society, I would feel unseen, as if that my voice was not being heard and that I was not important enough. But then I would also feel seen when I would see those beautiful children of Sushiksha and feel that my voice has reached various people in the world, but these people's voices, their faces are still unknown and they're still hidden. So it changes, it is contextual. When I was an international student in Australia and I was studying at the Australian National University, I was among the few brown people. I was the only Indian in my course, and I was the only female Indian in that course. I also happened to sit as a senator for a day at the Australian Federal Parliament, and again, there was a sense of being seen as unseen because I was the only brown female in the room, full of white people, white politicians in the Australian Federal Parliament. Well, that is what I wish to bring to you today. Being seen or unseen is contextual. You might feel seen today, you might feel unseen tomorrow, you might feel seen in this room, you might feel unseen in another room. It is a social construct, and no one is born with it. Which makes me lead to the final point, which is that action is the solution. Being seen or unseen should not be a matter of sympathy. It should not be seen with apathy, but only with empathy. And empathy demands action. When you feel that you have been seen, if you feel that your voice is being heard, you have access to the internet, you have access to social media, you have access to media, you have access to quality education, and a lot of people don't. Remember that when you are seen, make sure that you hold the hand of another person and you walk the journey of being seen together and not just leave them behind alone. And this is important because often what we understand of being seen and unseen is that we often become the voice of the voiceless. And this is where we do the mistake. The idea should not be to become the voice of someone, not to give voice to someone, but actually help them and empower them to explore their own voice, to tell their story in their own way, the way they want it to be, and not in our own words. Because this is the concept of power. We make someone powerless when we become their voice, but we make someone powerful when we help them find their own voice. And through this esteemed platform of TEDxDDUC today, this is all I want to bring to you today. Remember, you might feel seen today or you might feel unseen tomorrow. But remember that we all are very, very powerful and we have a lot of power that we can share with others. And we can walk the journey of being seen and make sure that no one feels unseen tomorrow. Thank you very much.